Hello, everybody. Give me just a second. We are live. That's good. That's good to know. And, hang on. I'm trying to make a community post. So, give me just a moment. There we go. Perfect. All right. We are up and going. Oh my goodness. What a game. The Bears find a way to win. It's a miracle, isn't it? It's a Christmas miracle, I swear. Just wanted to hop on here today, a day after do my best impression of a podcast or a radio show, whatever you want to call it. As most of you who have followed the channel for years know, I'm trying to get into sports media, so stuff like this is helping me out find my footing and get some reps in and get some practice with talking to you all about the Chicago Bears. And it's not like I'm trying to specifically get involved with the Bears, but this is the best way for me to get out my thoughts and my analysis, because it's the team that I follow the closest. And, it's very apparent because, there are only 17 games in the NFL season. And it's another bad one for the Bears. Let's be honest. It's another bad one. Let's get that out of the way. 5-12 is not a good NFL season, especially when you lose 10 games in a row in said season. But they ended it on a high note, and to me, that's really all that I care about. They ended it on a high note. They ended it with a win. They ended it with not just a win, but a win against the Green Bay Packers. I am just happy. That's how I'm feeling today. It's Victory Monday. It's not like it is Black Monday and everything, but it is Victory Monday, and it's the last Bears game for the next 7 months, which stinks because I do really like watching this team play, regardless of how bad they can be at times. I still do enjoy watching this team play. And the big thing that got me through this season was the development of Caleb Williams and wanting to see him improve and whatnot. There's a lot about him and the rookie talent that I wanted to see. I wanted to hold out hope for, especially in that losing streak. There are a lot of really tough losses in that losing streak. But they finally are able to close out a close one and find a way to win, which is something they have only done 5 times this year. It's the first time that they really felt like it was in a situation where they had lost every other time. They have 3 one-score wins on the year against Tennessee, which they came back and won from 17 down thanks to the defense and special teams. And then they won a 1-score game against the LA Rams, a playoff-bound team. So, I don't know. This one felt different because in those games, they didn't have the final drive. They were already winning. The other team didn't come back. So it was the team having to respond and lead a drive down the field to go win a football game. That was something that they had not been able to do this season because they weren't real. When they were in a position, they found ways to lose in spectacular ways. It wasn't just Caleb Williams threw a pick. He didn't throw a pick, except this pick against Seattle. He didn't throw a pick on a potentially game-tying / game-winning drive. And, he was really good on final drives this year. You look at that Houston drive and you're like, well, that's his second game in the NFL. it's whatever. Can't get it done against Indy despite being down 2 scores. Oh gosh, what else? He leads a game-winning drive against Washington, and he actually took the lead in that game after a frankly terrible performance in that game to that point. And then, he puts the Bears in a position to win. And then, of course, the Hail Mary happens. Drives the ball down the field, puts the Bears in a position to win against Green Bay Week 11. Kick gets blocked. He leads the team down from 11 points down in the final 2 minutes to tie the Vikings and go to overtime. They lost that game. Over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns in the second half against the Lions. With that debacle, and there's plenty of really strong performances from Caleb Williams. Now, was he incredibly consistent this year? No. He was not consistent, especially in the back half of the year. He was so much of a second half quarterback. Just in general, there was a lot of just inconsistent play. Slow starts was the name of the game this season. I was just kind of hoping. I was just getting ready for the season to be over and everything, right? It was just one of those things where it's just, we've never experienced a in-season coach firing, but I understand that you can't really do a lot to change the system when you get to that point. You gotta just roll with the rest of the year, and the issues that started all the way back in training camp, it's hard to fix those types of things on the fly. It's not impossible, but obviously this was not the team to be able to make that type of a shift. And they just continue to have slow starts. They had and what was it? I think it might have been their second touchdown in the first quarter when Blackwell returned it for a touchdown. I think it might have been just the second or third touchdown in the first quarter the Bears scored this season. So, in my opinion, that's one of the big things, I guess, just thinking about the team as a whole instead of just kind of people and personnel and what we should do front office-wise or personnel-wise. Thinking about whoever comes in, coaches, players, whoever comes in, what is really important, I think, going into the next season, being able to start on the right foot. I think there were just 2 opening drives out of 17 this year that the Bears scored points on. So I think that that's incredibly important going into next season, is to make sure you're putting points on the board, not on the first drive, of course, but not just that, but making sure that you are just getting into your rhythm early in the game, and it doesn't feel like you have to basically play a full half of football before you are able to figure out what the hell you're going to do offensively. So I think that that's really important to figure out going forward. Of course, there's certain people that we're going to have to get rid of, certain people we're going to have to sign, blah, blah, blah. We can talk about that later. I'm going to probably try and do, I know I'm going to do an off-season video here for sure in the next week or two, kind of breaking down this season as a whole and then what the team needs to do going forward. I would probably do that maybe, depending on how I approach it, maybe it's 2 videos, but I don't know. I think that we're at a position where we're at a very, very critical season for this Bears team. Critical offseason, specifically. This is an offseason that, if they get things right, could lead to prolonged success. And why would you say that? They just went 5-12. Well, unlike I've seen some other people talk about the Bears in this season and stuff like this, and just being a lot of doom and gloom. Everything's terrible. Blow it all up. I think that there are plenty of pieces that need to stick around. You need to have some sort of a core. I think the blow up needs to happen in the coaching staff. I think there's very little good that's being done in the coaching department in this organization. I think that to me is where the biggest changes need to be made, because this team has some dogs on it. Caleb Williams broke all sorts of rookie records, not just in Bears history, but he was breaking rookie records in the NFL with the interceptionless streak, and that's the big one, of course. But he was breaking pretty much every major Bears rookie record, and he was doing some of these major ones by like week 12, week 13. It wasn't even like he barely broke. He crushed some of these records, as he should have. And not only that, he was doing things this year that haven't been done ever in Bears history. 3,000 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, and less than 10 interceptions. Never been done by a Bears quarterback. That is embarrassing, by the way. And that's ridiculous. I think it was said, period, he was the first quarterback to throw for 20 touchdowns and less than 10 interceptions in, since the 60s. So, I mean, the way that the sheer numbers he was able to put up in the major categories broke all sorts of records for Bears history. I mean, the passing yards was 5th all time in his rookie year. The thing is, you look at those stats, and it becomes a lot harder to be excited because they've won 5-12. For some people. Some people continuously just don't want to have fun and don't want to enjoy themselves and have little joy that they can out of the season, and just consistently sit there and point to the win-loss record. 5-12, 4-12, whatever the record was at the time. Right now it's 5-12, 5-12, 5-12. Keep talking about it. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. At some point, especially when you root for a losing team, you have, if you want to be able to feel any sort of joy, enjoyment, you have to start taking what you can. And when you take what you can, you take the fact that Caleb Williams, he played well in his first season with 2 head coaches, 3 offensive coordinators, still able to put up 3,500 yards and 20 touchdowns, less than 10 interceptions. It's the best QB to touchdown to interception ratio in Bears history by a landslide. I mean, if he's going to play like this when the team goes 5-12, imagine the way he's going to play when the team is even 10-7. Now, I don't know if the actual numbers will be much better because, let's be real, there were several games this season that the Bears should have won and lost, not entirely on the shoulders of Caleb Williams. I'm looking at Washington, Green Bay, and Detroit specifically. Those are 3 games that not only they should have won, but they should have much been in that game. Those are games that they should have won. Let's be honest. And that right there puts you at 8-9. Now, I do genuinely think that the Hail Mary broke the team and broke the season and sent that on the train wreck that ended up being, mainly because the locker room culture was toast after this. Couldn't rally. The coaches couldn't get the players back in the swing of things, and it's a detriment to the coaching staff because, honestly, they should have been able to bounce back with those 2 games they had before the tough late season stretch. But I knew after they lost to New England, they were winning another game. They didn't get an easy game on the schedule to try and as a get-right game. They didn't have that after they fired Shane Waldron. All their easy games were out of the way when they played, after they played New England. The easiest game on the schedule left was San Francisco. And now they get to play San Francisco on the road again next year because they finished last in their division, so that's going to be wonderful. Which, by the way, that road schedule is looking brutal next year. Anyways, I mean, can't get much worse than 1-7 on the road, right? They got 9 road games next year. Maybe, 1-8? I don't know. Whatever it is. Anyways, there's a lot that you can talk about with Caleb Williams and not putting up wins while looking at some of the other quarterbacks in the draft. this year and putting up wins themselves. And the way that I think about it is just shh, quiet. I'm going to ignore you, and I'm just going to enjoy the season that I watch. It's like this entire fight has been exactly what it was like in 2022 when the Bears lost 10 in a row to end that season, and Justin Fields was doing everything in his power to try and win football games, but he couldn't because the team around him stunk, and he basically had to play a perfect game. The only difference is that he had a couple moments where he did end up losing the game in the last drive by throwing a pick or fumbling. He had a couple moments in that season. But he was also the reason why they were in a lot of those games down that stretch as well. One of the more, honestly, that season was way more exciting than some of the other seasons I've watched. Mainly like 2021, 2019, 2017, 2016. Like, there are a lot of seasons that I thought the 3-14 season was more enjoyable to watch, despite all the losing. And that's kind of how that is what the mentality that I had to shift to. I don't want to shift to this mentality. No one wants to. But it was the mentality that I think I had to shift to find any enjoyment out of this season by the time they got to like week 12 or week 13. Just Caleb Williams, please just go out there and look pretty good. If they lose, whatever. You get a better draft position and whatnot. Which, again, I don't want to be rooting for draft positions. I'm kind of tired of rooting for draft positions, which I was really happy it was just like, you know what? I don't care if they lost 2 draft spots. They won and they beat the Packers. I'm not going to complain. So anyone that is complaining about that, you got to really start thinking about what you're doing with your Sundays, man. If you're not going to be happy for the Bears beating the Packers for the first time in 5.5 years because they lost 2 draft spots, you really got to think about your Bears fandom right there. Because that is, I don't know how you go out of that game and that's your takeaway. It's a game that they should have lost, and they're ruining their draft stock or whatever. That is a total loser's mentality. The only time I really sit there and really root for draft picks in the last week of the year is when they're going to talk about like a top 5 pick, and when it's like a top 5 pick or a win loses you like 5-6 spots. It's why the number 1 overall pick race was so tight this year, and why it felt like the Giants and the Raiders specifically ruined their seasons. I mean, look at the Patriots. They won Week 18. They're now picking 4th instead of 1st. But that's whatever. I don't care. It's a bad year to be a bad team in the league. 5-12 gets you the 10th overall pick. In most years, you're a top 5 pick with that record. Most years, it's a top 5 pick. It's a bad year to be a bad team in the NFL. All right? They were 7-10 last year and got the 9th overall pick. All right? So, there were a lot of bad teams in the league this year. This was a very... there wasn't much in the middle. There were the haves and the have-nots. There weren't really many in the middle. I mean, you look at it. Like, there's 2 teams with 15 wins, 2 teams with 14 wins. I mean, that's huge. You have 4 teams that combined this season for a grand total, what would that be, of 10 losses. The Bears lost 12 games alone, right? There were 4 teams combined for 10 losses. There are 12 teams that lost 10 games this year. All right? We can talk about this all day long. But I want to talk about the game. Because don't care about the circumstances, whether it's a meaningless game or whatever. Bears had lost 11 straight to the Packers. All I wanted was them to win one. And that was all that mattered to me. And again, I said it in my reaction video that I uploaded this morning. This means something to me. I was a junior in high school the last time the Bears beat the Packers. I was in high school. I've graduated college. The last time the Bears won in Lambeau Field, I was still in middle school. I graduated college, by the way. At some point, you have to just get excited and just experience happiness and let yourself get happy despite the circumstances, despite all the ifs, ands, or buts that people could throw out about this game. I do not care. They won. I am happy. It's something they haven't done since they clinched the NFC North 6 years ago. They've been bad, and when they have been bad, they have not been able to beat the Packers. I started becoming a Bears fan in late 2013, so I missed the win that they had earlier that season. I've seen them win against the Packers 3 times. 3 times. 2 of them were in Lambeau when they were the inferior team. But then again, they've only had really 1 or 2 games in that span where they've genuinely been the better team. So it's just nice to win one against them. I don't care in the way that they did it, who they did it against. Doesn't matter to me at all. Just finding a way to win one. Because for that locker room, with the stuff that they've encountered at the end of this season, you do not want an 11-game losing streak going through the entire offseason. Because we saw what happened with the 2023 Bears when they lost 10 games to end the season the prior year. They lost another 4 games, and they were just allergic to winning. It started with a loss against the Packers, and then they lose in Tampa. They get boat raced by Kansas City, and then they blow a 21-point lead against the Broncos. It takes for them to nearly to take another 20-plus point lead at halftime against Washington, and for them to make it somewhat interesting for you to go out and win that game and break that streak. So, I mean, at some point, you have to just sit there and say, well, it's a bad season, but actually a nice little gift to end the season about. Because if you're just sitting here complaining about draft positioning or just moping about other 5-12 seasons, saying this doesn't matter, you need to start thinking about what you're going to do on Sundays instead of watching the Bears. Because, good Lord, you have to find a way to just... It's a law about rooting for bad teams. You have to take what you can get and take the little joy that you can get and just run with it. Because, especially in Chicago right now, like, there are some people that are genuinely thinking that this is meaningless. And I'm like, have you seen Chicago sports for the last year? The last calendar year was arguably, possibly the worst calendar year for Chicago sports. The Hawks were, again, a bottom 3 team in the league after being the bottom team the year prior. The Bears, another forgettable season with playoff aspirations because there was a good roster. They just had terrible coaching. And that was the biggest reason why they got into a slump. And then the guys on the team just stopped being able to perform as well. That's the way that I'm thinking about it. The Cubs, they're mediocre. They were mediocre. They were the best team in the city. The White Sox broke the record for literally the worst MLB team of all time. And then the Bulls were just, again, they weren't even mediocre. They were just below average to just bad. So it's like, to start 2025 in this way, for the Bears to go out and beat the Packers is incredibly important. And Bears fans and Chicago sports fans should really take this and run with it, because there's been so much pain and suffering for the last couple of years now that this is the small amount of joy that we can get. And plus, I mean, I don't know if you've been seeing some stuff. Some people, if people have been, really paying attention to what's going on socials. We are absolutely we broke Packers Twitter, the Packers fan base. You've got people fighting about whether or not they're gonna people saying that they're gonna get boat raced by Philly and we should fire Matt LaFleur. Please do, by the way. That would actually be so amazing. I cannot believe that Packer fans are actually thinking about firing the head coach when through 6 seasons he's made the playoffs 5 times And the one time he didn't make the playoffs, he was 8-9. Since he took over as Packers head coach, the Bears have had a record better than 8-9 twice, and that was because they went 8-8. So do not give me any sort of we're tortured, we go through all this pain. You've been good. You've been good. You made the playoffs 5 of the last 6 seasons. You won the division 3 years in a row in that span, by the way. You've been to 2 NFC championship games. I don't want to hear it. I really don't. Because there is no comparison. You won 11 straight against the Bears. Matt LaFleur's 11-1. I don't know why this is breaking some people so much to the point where they think that they're going to have to fire Matt LaFleur. That's not the answer. He is not the problem in that locker room. He's, in fact, the reason why that team is so good in the first place. Do you see his offensive scheme? Jordan Love has the easiest job in the league. How many times has he thrown to an open receiver who's got 3, 4, 5 yards of separation? It's ridiculous. The scheme that he has. Sorry, my voice is gone a little bit. Obviously, you're kind of telling. But the scheme that Matt LaFleur has, it benefits the players on that team. Have you seen some of the receivers on Packers teams of the past since Matt LaFleur took over go to other teams? They're not that good. You look at some of these guys, like Marquez Valdes-Scantling is a joke. He's a total meme. People meme on that guy so much. You talk about a guy like Robert Tonyan, who had a phenomenal 2020 season, but even Bears fans know he came to play for him as their third tight end last year, and he was awful. It's so, it's like you see some of these. I guarantee you, if the Packers lose one of their guys in their receiver room, whether that be Watson, Reed, Dobbs, Melton, Heath, whoever it is, once I guarantee you, if they lose someone in that roster, they will become wide receiver 5 on another team and not get any targets. Because they have some decent receivers, but they don't have a true number 1. But also, Matt LaFleur knows this and schemes to that. There's a different guy that makes plays every game, and you have to, at some point, just be excited about something like that, because you're able to make things work offensively with guys that really aren't putting up any numbers outside of this organization. So again, I do not want to hear any complaints about fire Matt LaFleur, this team is terrible, all this negative talk. Look, we just have to accept the Packers are a second-rate team in the NFC. They're a good team, but they're 11-6. Their loss to the Bears was the only loss this season against a team who had a worse record than them. They went 0-5 against the Lions, Vikings, and Eagles, the 3 top teams in the NFC. And that exactly is why they're just going to be a second-rate team. And that's also why they're the 7th seed. They couldn't find a way to beat the elite in the NFC this season. But, at some point, good teams beat up on the bad teams as well. So you kind of have to jostle the whole, well, they're beating the teams that they should. They're not winning the games against the teams that are better than them. Can we find a way to win one of those? It would also be so Packers to lose all those games in the regular season, only to go out and win in the playoffs. It would be so Packers. Because guess what? They just find ways to win even when they're in a down year. Look at what happened last year as the 7th seed. They crushed Dallas. And were pretty close. Had a chance to go and tie or beat San Francisco. So, I mean, it's a tough route for the Packers. They probably got the absolute worst straw they could have. Having to go play Philly on the road. If they find a way to win that, They're most likely going on the road to play. Honestly, they might actually, depending on how the wild card weekend shakes out, they could be playing whoever wins between Tampa and Washington, or they could be playing Minnesota. Whoever. They could be going on the, well, actually, they'd be going on the road to Detroit, sorry, because there's 7. They go on the road and play Detroit. And then if they find a way to win that game, there's a good chance they play either Washington or Minnesota. So, I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I feel like the Packers have a better chance to beat the Eagles than the Broncos do to beat the Bills. If you're talking 7v2. But, that's... Look, if I'm a Packer fan, this loss sucks. End of the year, against your arch rival, and you finally give them an ounce of joy, basically. You finally give them something to latch onto after beating them down for the last half decade. And so, yeah, now we're at a point where it's just we're going to the playoffs again. Which, by the way, they're an 11-6 football team and the 7 seed, third wild card team. It's kind of also a bad year to be a really good team, especially the NFC. The NFC's really good this year. I think that there's a chance that pretty much all 7 teams could end up winning the conference. I think the team that has the worst shot is the Rams, mainly because they play the Vikings. But then again, they beat the Vikings earlier this year. Regardless, they can talk about playoff preview later. But the NFC playoff picture is really interesting, and I feel like there's a chance that any team can win any game in that bracket. So, I mean, like, Packers fans have no room to complain. Of course, you might lose. If you lose in the wild card round, okay. But, I mean, you've been a successful franchise for how long? How many times you missed the playoffs in the last 10 years? Hang on, I know this. Hang on. 1, 2, 3. You've missed the playoffs 3 times since 2010. You've had a losing record 3 times since 2010. Well, yeah, that's kind of what that means. But if you want to go back even farther, I have the NFC North Division history pulled up since it became the North and stopped becoming the Central. So since 2002, the Packers have had just 5 losing seasons since 2002. They've missed the playoffs just 6 times since 2002. So again, I do not want to hear it. The Packers have missed the playoffs just 6 times since 2002. I'll say that again. And the Bears have made the playoffs just 5 times since 2002. Again, I do not want to hear it. You know who else only has 5 playoff appearances in 2002? The Detroit Lions. I don't want to hear about pain and suffering from that fan base because there is nothing like that. You can say playoff failure all you want. At the same time, you have had a season like the Bears had this season in the last 20 years. You had a 4-12 season in 2005, and that's the worst your team has been in 2 decades. You've won less than 5 games once in 20 years, and the Bears have won less than 5 games twice. They've won 5 games on the dot 4 times since 2002. You go to the Lions, oh, that's even worse. Let's see. I got to actually count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. They have won less than 5 games in a season since 2002. And that doesn't even include 2 other 5-11 seasons. Or actually 3 other 5-11 seasons. So once again, I do not want to hear any complaints from the Packers fans about how they're tortured or how they're a cursed franchise or whatever. You can argue that they're a cursed franchise in January. Sure, why not? They've had some really brutal playoff losses. I will not discount that. But don't talk about this team like genuinely being like cursed because you're always a good regular season team. And that's not going to change. Anyways, if anyone has any questions, statements to drop in the chat, please do so. I will need to, hang on. I gotta, where's the, oh shoot, hang on. One second. There we go. All right. I gotta use the restroom. So I'll be back in just a couple minutes. But I'll be right back. If you have any comments, questions you want me to answer when I come back, please drop them in the chat and I will answer them when I come back. I'm also gonna mute my mic. I am back. Had to hit the restroom for just a slight moment, but yeah. Anyways, if anyone's got any questions, anything that they're wanting to say, yeah, I am here to listen and discuss things with you all. I don't want to just keep talking to a wall, if you will. So if you have anything, go ahead and drop that in the chat. If not, I might go ahead and end this stream here. Mainly because I've got my feelings out there in the way that I'm feeling. I've got a lot of thoughts, but I also am kind of in a position where I've got some off-season content I'm going to make here. I'm going to try and gather up the ideas. But, you know, say what you want about a meaningless win or congrats on the 5-12 season. When do you guys play next week? Woohoo, you beat our backups. First off, your backups was just 2 guys. Don't tell me about injuries. Injuries happen. You see the Lions making excuses about injuries? I didn't think so. The only guy that you pulled out of the game was Josh Jacobs. You chose not to put Jordan Love back in. He probably could have gone back in after tweaking his elbow, but you weren't going to risk it. And honestly, why would you, right? Because Christian Watson went down in a game that he didn't need to go in and play. Tore his ACL. I just heard that the news came through. He tore his ACL, which is just absolutely brutal. I mean, who knows if he's even going to be ready to start for next season, right? Like, He'll probably have to come back halfway through next year or whatever, right? But it's like there's that. The only guy that got actually pulled in that game was Josh Jacobs. The defense that had been starting the last couple weeks was there. Like, they didn't pull any defensive starters. If there were defensive starters that were hurt, they were hurt. That's it. Like, I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me because the only backup that was in was Malik Willis, and then you got your second string running back who still ran all over the Bears defense. So, I mean, I'm taking it. I don't care. It's just like, shush. I don't really care about that stuff. Saying that you beat our backups, it just shows that despite winning 11 in a row, losing once in a game that doesn't matter, it really gets to you. So, that's just my perspective on it. I'm choosing to enjoy this. And if you want to try and ruin my joy, go ahead. It's not happening. We won. Because guess what? You know what exactly would be happening if the Bears had lost that game. You guys, not you guys specifically. I don't know if there are any Packer fans watching this right now. But Packer fans would exactly be saying, well, you lost to our backups. Wow, you guys are just that bad. You can't even beat our backups. And then it's like we win. It's just, you can't win with some people, right? So you have to you have to put away all the noise and just sit there and just enjoy it. Just go out there and be happy. It's Victory Monday. They beat the Packers. It's the end of the year, too. So it's not like they have any more games to go to ruin the feeling that we're feeling right now. It's just, I don't know, man. It's so fun to finally go out there and win against the Packers, especially for someone my age who's really only seen it happen a handful of times. I can't even count on one hand how many times I've seen the Bears beat the Packers. So, I don't know. Anyone trying to talk about beating our backups, meaningless win, you're coping after a loss, which I know exactly how that feels. And two, shove it. Like, it's... I'm taking this win for the next 7 months. It's supplying my Bears fan for the next 7 months. That final drive I'm going to be replaying all year long. But, Bears season's over. I'll get back together with you guys and we'll talk about the offseason and what has to transpire, what the Bears need to do. Talk about the season as a whole in general as well. But I just wanted to hop on here and, dump some more thoughts about this game, about the teams involved, whatnot. If anyone has any comments, questions, concerns, insults, whatever, go ahead and drop it. I can't believe we won that game. I was shocked. Man, I can't believe it either. I am so pumped. I was so pumped. I did actually record my reaction live to it. I thought about posting it at the very beginning of the video, like I did for the Washington game when they lost. But I was like, I don't know. I ended up making the gut decision to just not. The video was long enough anyways. I think actually that the video I posted this morning, I think it actually broke the record for longest video on the channel. I think it's only by like 5 seconds or whatever, but I think 35 minutes is the longest one. Who do you think the next head coach will be? Honestly, I think it's going to be Ben Johnson. A lot of people really want Mike Vrabel, but looking at how the Patriots fired Gerard Mayo not even 24 hours after they beat the Bills to lose the first overall pick, I think that Robert Kraft is going to go chase his former player during the dynasty years in Mike Vrabel. I think he's going to go chase him and try and get him for Drake May and for that entire locker room. So that's the way I'm feeling about that specifically. So that means that, out of the two top candidates that and a lot of Bears fans want as the head coach, you're going to get Ben Johnson. And that's been my top pick pretty much all year long. I've wanted, because especially considering what happened with the offensive game plan from the get-go, because obviously a lot of the problems the offense had this season goes all the way back to training camp. And it's hard to make major adjustments in the middle of the season when you're trying to prepare, but you try what you can, especially as an interim head coach. I think the funniest thing as well, Thomas Brown wins against the Packers. He's 1-4 as a head coach, 1-0 against the Packers. Matt Eberflus still the only Bears head coach to never beat Green Bay. I think that's just the funniest thing ever. And it, again, further cements his legacy as the worst Bears head coach of all time. And then, it's like you look at what happened with that offense this year. Shane Waldron obviously being the wrong hire. And it being very clear that the guys didn't want it. It was very clear, like from the get-go this season. He had 2 good games against Carolina and Jacksonville, and then just whatever they did during the bye week was just awful because they did not get their stride again. But I think it's going to be Ben Johnson. And if it's not Ben Johnson, I surely hope it is some offensive-minded guy, because look at the other coaches in the division, and you're like, Matt LaFleur and Kevin O'Connell are putting together some of the best offenses of the league, and they don't have the top talent in the league. Like, that's arguably what's more impressive about what Matt LaFleur's done in Green Bay, which is, again, why it's beyond me that Packer fans want him fired. He's taking above-average players, average to above-average players. I wouldn't say there's a true superstar on that offense besides Josh Jacobs. Jordan Love is an above-average quarterback. He's not a top-5 quarterback in the league, in my opinion. And so he's not a superstar. Josh Jacobs probably is the only superstar on that Packers offense, and they went 11-6 and were, dicing up defenses all the time. That happens with good scheme and good coaching. Kevin O'Connell took Sam Darnold as a bridge quarterback and led the Vikings to 14 wins. That doesn't happen with an average head coach. Now, he did have the pieces on offense in Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson to get that done. But regardless, Sam Darnold won more games this season as Vikings quarterback than he did in however many years he was with the New York Jets. So, But, anyways, I think it's Ben Johnson. I think Ben Johnson is the move. They've already requested. I actually thought that you can't interview head coaching candidates until their team's eliminated from the playoffs. But you can, apparently, with teams that get a first-round bye. So the Bears have already set up interviews with Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator for Detroit. So, I think it's great. Honestly, there have been a lot of, things coming out. The Bears have requested to interview this coaching candidate from wherever, right? I think that's fine. Whatever. Because you can interview as many guys as you can. Because there were several times, especially the last time they were looking for a head coach, they just didn't interview certain coaching candidates who obviously were much better than Matt Eberflus. So I'm okay with them interviewing as many candidates as they see fit. I do know that they are going to interview Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn this week while the Lions are on their bye. They have to do it before a certain time, so they got to schedule that and everything. But that's not my realm to go into, because guess what? I'm not in that organization. Go Eagles! I'll be a fan of the Birds this weekend with them playing the Packers. So I'll tell you that much. Be really funny. I don't know the last time the Packers not only lost to the Bears. Well, I do remember the last time the Bears beat the Packers. It was 2018. I don't know the last time the Packers lost back-to-back games to their two biggest rivals in the Vikings and the Bears. Now, it's a bit of a rare circumstance because it has to be back-to-back weeks, but, you talk about just in general losing to the Bears and the Vikings in back-to-back division games or whatever, right? I couldn't tell you the last time that's happened. I couldn't tell you what time that's happened, like, in the span of 5 weeks. Actually, hang on. Let me go back to 2018. Because I'm starting to think about it, right? Well, let's see. Well, obviously, I can tell you this right now. Packers did not play the Vikings the week before or after the Bears last beat them. So, there's that. But, there's other things, right? But regardless, I think that it's time to go shoot for Ben Johnson. That's my head coaching candidate. That's my home run hitter. And that's the move they have to make. They can't settle in this class specifically with the quarterback they have. They cannot settle for the 4th or 5th best candidate of the class. They have to go out and get the top candidate. And again, if Ben Johnson ends up being not great, I will still defend the decision to go hire him because guess what? He is the top prospect of the class. If Mike Vrabel does well, okay, great. That might be the only time I'd be like, well, they could have had Mike Vrabel. But it depends on if the Patriots basically go out, interview Vrabel, and offer him the job, and he accepts it before the Bears or really any other team gets to interview him. What can you say? The Patriots went after their guy, and they got him before any other team could even give him a thought and give him a chance. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. I think Vrabel is the other option outside of Ben Johnson. But I'm not sitting here thinking that it's over if the Bears don't get Mike Vrabel. I think that, Vrabel would be a good Bears hire. I think that the more that I've thought about Mike Vrabel, the more that I've warmed up to him being the head coach. I really, really want this offense to soar, if that's a good verbiage. I really, really want this offense to be the star of the show. But at the same time, hiring an offensive head coach doesn't automatically mean that your offense is going to magically, play out of this world. I understand that. And I know that Mike Vrabel would be a good hire because just he's a guy that commands a room. And he'd be the closest to something like Dan Campbell that the Bears can get. Because Dan Campbell, he's not necessarily the offensive genius behind that Lions team. I think that's the important thing to also remember when trying to think about the conversation about, well, why would we hire another offensive coordinator when the last time we did that with Matt Nagy, it completely blew up in our face. Which, funnily enough, Matt Nagy is by far the best coach the Bears have had since they fired Lovie Smith. He has a winning record as Bears head coach, only had a losing season once, took the teams to the playoffs twice, which, oh, by the way, no coach has done twice. No coach has done once since they fired Smith. But regardless, we can complain about Nagy all we want. Ben Johnson has been, because that was the thing that I was happy with Shane Waldron coming to Chicago. He had play calling experience, which is a problem with Bears offensive coordinators basically since Matt Nagy took over as head coach. Most Bears play callers, offensive coordinators, had never been play callers before. Matt Nagy, he might go out for another head coaching job here soon, by the way. The thing is, Ben Johnson has been running his own scheme. Matt Nagy and some of these play callers that are play calling for the first time, they ran under someone else's scheme. Like Matt Nagy was running under Andy Reid's scheme. That's a perfect example. Ben Johnson has been calling and running his own individual scheme for 3 years. That's miles better than getting a guy who would be a first-time head coach and really hasn't run his own system. but was an offensive coordinator for a good team. Ben Johnson is a smart play caller, but he's also playing with one of the best O-lines and star players and a strong head coach. Won't any of that here. Well, he can instantly change that. That's the thing. He can go out and make sure that he can change that. And I think, well, it's like Ben Johnson was the offensive coordinator on the Lions when they went 9-8 and started that season like what, 2-6, whatever. Hang on. So I'm not sitting there thinking that he's just a merchant of having hang on. Let's see. Yeah, so he's been a coach with the Dolphins since 2012 to 2018. He's been with the Lions organization for 6 years, the offensive coordinator for 3 of them. And it's just like, this is his 3rd year as an offensive coordinator. And you look at that 22 Lions team that struggled right out the gate there. You know, what, like, let's see. And they still scored 35 points against Philadelphia, lost 27 against Washington, lost 24 against Minnesota, lost 45 against Seattle, lost. You know, got shut out against New England. You know, and it's like then they had a couple bad losses, but they were not a good football team at the beginning of that season. And then, you know, it's like beat the Packers at home, beat the Bears on the road, beat the Giants on the road, and beat them convincingly. Lose to Buffalo at home, fine. Beat Jacksonville at home, like crush them too. Beat the Vikings at home. Beat the Jets on the road. Lose to Carolina. Beat the Bears at home, and then beat the Packers on the road. So, you know, it's not like he's been on like exclusively great teams. He's my top candidate. I understand why people think that Mike Vrabel is theirs. But Waldron had his own players calling him out to media. Imagine if Amon-Ra came out and said, good luck with that about Ben Johnson. Yeah, let's be real. Yes, you are right about that as well. Shane Waldron was a bad hire from the start. But, you know, initially, when he was hired, my biggest positive with it was the fact that he had called plays for at least a year or two, which is what wasn't a threat of which wasn't the standard for Bears offensive coordinators for the years prior. Like Luke Getsy specifically was just terrible. And I was just like, we need to get someone who has experience calling plays. Waldron had some experience, but obviously you could tell his scheme was not working. And when you got, you know, Jackson Smith and Jigma saying good luck with that, you know, that's not a good sign, but he was totally right about that. And he lasted 10 games. But, you know, look, I think that regardless if they pick Johnson or Vrabel, it's a good hire. I think that's where you're at. That's where you're at. You got to go for one of those two candidates. And if other teams beat you to the punch, like I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots beat the Bears to the punch and hire Vrabel first. That would not surprise me in the slightest. You know, former Patriot, probably pretty good buddies with Robert Kraft. I wouldn't be surprised. Do you think the Bears are playoff caliber within the next couple of years? Oh, 100%. If they make the right moves this offseason, 100% they could be playoff caliber in the next year or two. There are some people out there who are saying that this team's like 2-3 years away from contention, and I do not buy into that. Not in the slightest. Hang on. I gotta grab my... No, it's good. All right. I think that this team... Look, this team was disappointing. We can talk about this team being bad all we want. Some of these other bad teams that the Bears have had were genuinely just straight up bad. They didn't have the talent to be a good football team. This team had the talent at the start of... Yes, exactly. If Washington and Denver can make the playoffs with their roster, I believe the Bears too. The Bears had a pretty good roster this year at the start of the year. Their biggest problem was coaching. Again, at the start of the year, obviously now we look back at it, they had the 6th best head coach in the division because Ben Johnson and Brian Flores would have been better head coaches than Matt Eberflus. So not just the 3 other head coaches in the division, but 2 other coordinators in that division were better than Matt Eberflus. He constantly blew late game scenarios. You know, there were a lot of people think that they're 2 or 3 years away from competing. And honestly, I think that if they knock down a Hail Mary against Washington, they're not even they're at 5-2, and they probably go out and win at least one of the next 2 games, maybe even get to 7-2 before playing Green Bay. And they keep that momentum going. Now, granted, it was necessary to happen for all the changes that we needed to have happen, continue to happen. You know, getting rid of Shane Waldron, getting rid of Matt Eberflus, you know, all these other pieces that needed to fall. So, in retrospect, the Hail Mary end of the season, but it also is very indicative of the season as a whole. Because there's one of 2 ways. I said it after the Washington game, the Arizona game, even after New England. There's 2 ways you can handle a loss like that. You bounce back, you rally the troops, and you go out and you win your next game, and you prove that you can overcome a tough loss like that. Or you can just do whatever the Bears did for the rest of the year and just keel over into curl up into a ball and just die, right? Boat race by Arizona and New England, the last 2 easy games on the schedule. And then you have the gauntlet of 6-11 win teams, 7-10 win teams, and the Niners, which, that's not a gimme either, right? So, no, Eberflus's defense wasn't awful, and that was very clear after he got fired. The defense got significantly worse. Knowing all the great coach candidates out there, I can predict the Bears are going to hire Rich Bisaccia. I swear to God. Honestly, let's also just a quick side note. The Raiders should never have fired Rich Bisaccia when he became their interim head coach. He went to after they fired John Gruden and they went to the playoffs. He should never have been fired. But he had a disaster class as Packers special team coach yesterday. Eberflus's defensive calling wasn't awful. His defensive scheme took a while to get going with the guys that he wanted, but it was clear that he had a defensive scheme that was kind of working and that the team was in games. Him as a head coach was terrible. As a defensive coordinator, not the worst in the world, but he has a reputation of blowing games late. And that goes back to his days with Indianapolis. So, it was one of those things where it kind of just needed to happen. And if they did it against Detroit or whatever, it was going to happen today. On Black Monday, Eberflus was going to be fired one way or another. So, and now at this point, we're at a point now where it's just we can go ahead and do a full reset with the coaching staff. And that's the good thing. It's not like we're in the middle of the season and you can't really do that type of stuff. You can really retool. Now, you can go in, do a deep clean. Eric Washington proves that not a great defensive play caller. Obviously, letting up 38 to the Niners. He got better in these last 2 games. Only let him 6 to Seattle and then 22 to Green Bay. Not too bad, but not good. I'll tell you that much right now. And so he won't be back. Richard Hightower made a nice statement at the end of his tenure. He probably won't be back, but I also don't really care that much if he returns. And then, Thomas Brown's probably not going to be involved in the organization. And if he is, it's going to be as a lesser role, probably back to where he was to start the year as a passing game coordinator or something like that. So I guess that. My dad, being a Bears fan since at least the late 70s, early 80s, the Bears have always blown games. They get lazy on defense, run their big lead, and end up blowing the game. No, you're right. I mean, I think that's what is really important about the win, is that they finished. And especially if you look about it in the last 2-3 years, right? I mean, they've been blowing so many bad games. Like Eberflus specifically, like you can talk about the Bears blowing a 7-point lead in the fourth quarter or a 10-point lead in the third quarter. Or, you can talk about those types of leads, a double-digit lead in the second quarter or whatever, a 3-point lead late in the fourth. You can talk about just having the lead in the fourth quarter and losing. Matt Eberflus had genuine games where he had a 95% chance to win games and lost. That's where I think the disaster class. That's the peak. That's the crowning achievement of the disaster class of the Eberflus era. Not just that he lost a lot of games. John Fox lost a lot of games. Matt Eberflus lost a lot of games, but he did it in spectacular fashion. 21-point lead against Denver. 10-point lead in the fourth quarter against Cleveland with the playoffs on the line, pretty much. Let's see. 9-point lead in the fourth quarter against the Packers. Still a multi-possession lead. Two multi-score leads in the fourth quarter against the Lions. I mean, like, there's plenty of examples of him blowing big leads late in games. And not just 3-point lead in the fourth quarter. I'm talking multi-possession leads. So that's where you start to say that's where he gets the crowning achievement of worst Bears coach ever. In my opinion, at least. And the only time he was able to win games was when he was playing bad teams or backups. Eberflus let Roquan walk and then asked for Tremaine Edmonds. I've seen a lot of people talk about them letting Roquan Smith and David Montgomery walk and whatnot. I don't think that either of those teams wanted to sign a contract or were going to sign a contract. I think that there was not even... Don't even bring the Browns game up. I was pissed watching that. That was brutal. If you want to see me react and lose my mind about that Hail Mary, you can find that on this channel. There's actually a live reaction posted. I forgot about that. The thing is, like, I don't think they were going to I don't think they were going to get a chance to sign Roquan or Montgomery. I think both of those players wanted out of the organization. And that's that. And yes, they got lesser talent for it. And that's annoying. But, it just didn't feel... They were on contract years, and it didn't feel like they were going to re-sign anyways. And that's part of the problem. And that's something that I think that they've got to go out and fix culture-wise. How do we make it so that our top players want to stay? So, I mean, have you seen the 25? Oh, I've seen the 25-26 schedule. They're not going 0-17. They have the Raiders on their schedule. They have the Browns on their schedule. They're not going 0-17. I'll tell you that right now. And regardless, a shakeup in this position will be fine anyways, in my opinion. Actually, I think I could tell you right now, they got 3 games they can win, no problem. At home against the Giants, at home against the Browns, on the road against the Raiders. The rest of the road schedule is absolutely brutal. The three division games are tough, but it's like Philly, Washington, Baltimore, Cincinnati. Those are the scripted road games this year. Those are the road games that there was nothing that they could do to change the outcome of that. That was just how the rotation works, and it just so happens that this is the part of the rotation they're on, where they're playing the NFC East with Philly and Washington on the road, and not Dallas and New York on the road. And then they get Baltimore and Cincy on the road, instead of Pittsburgh and Cleveland on the road. It's a very bad draw. And of course, the division that they have to play on the road in the NFC is the NFC West, and that's San Francisco, because they finished 4th. They do get the Saints at home, which will be nice. I'm honestly kind of just happy they don't get to play Carolina again, because the way that they've played there towards the end of their season, I think that could be a very tough game for the Bears at home, which is not what they needed. So they get the Saints, who are in total turmoil right now. So that could be a nice one as well. So, I mean, I don't know. Look, at this point, I don't think 0-17 is going to happen. The team, again, I think the team, talent-wise, way too talented to be 5-12. And that's going to be the same case next year. But I think if they can find a coach that can manage a game clock, get his team ready for game day, and maximize and hire coordinators and other guys in the coaching staff that's going to maximize the talent on the roster, and he's going to use the talent on the roster to their fullest potential where they thrive, a.k.a. use Cole Kmet or use Rome Odunze as a 50-50 ball threat, as a jump ball deep threat. Again, need I say again, in his senior year in college, the best contested catch receiver in the country. Use DJ Moore as a speedster. Get him in open space. Like, it's simple. With the guys on the roster, it can work. They just didn't have the offensive scheme for that this year. Whoever they hire as the next offensive coordinator, whether it be Ben Johnson calling plays and using his scheme, or Mike Vrabel hiring someone, regardless, they need to make the right hires to make that offense thrive, because they have a good core. They just didn't utilize them at all. So that's the way I think about it. And they have some pieces on defense to keep around. I think that this secondary has a good core going with Jalen Johnson. Kyler Gordon had a great last couple games. Jaquan Brisker getting injured with a concussion really sucks, but I do like the way he plays football. Hard-nosed, very tough. So I think those three guys are keepers. I think TJ Edwards is a keeper. I think Montez Sweat, despite having an off year, is still important to have. You can't just get rid of him. He's the best player on the defensive line by a landslide. You need to have Dexter there because he had a better season than his rookie year, and he's starting to progress. He had a bit of an up and down season, but again, you need to have someone on the defensive line who's familiar with playing with the guys on the line. The other two starters are where you fill in this spot. There are a couple other places that you fill. But when it comes to the starters on the roster, I like more of them than don't like, if that makes sense. I feel like there are a handful of replaceable guys. There are some that I feel like can be replaced, but I would not be totally upset if they stayed. Like, I know some people don't want to re-sign Keenan Allen. If they do, I don't care. If they do re-sign Keenan Allen, they need to make him the third receiver and the third target and third priority. They need to make sure in year 2 Rome Odunze gets involved in the offense more. If they keep someone like Tremaine Edmonds, I'm not going to be thrilled, but it's not like he's not the worst linebacker out there. But at that point, you probably want to draft someone to try and have it be like a bridge year in a sense or something. Kevin Byard, I would actually not be upset if they retained. He had a pretty good year, pretty good coverage. Of course, I mean, that absolute gnarly strip sack on the blitz. But, you know, I believe Caleb Marone will be the next Justin and DJ. Justin and DJ had 1 year. All right, Caleb Marone will have that same connection. But it's different because they're in the same class. I think the thing that I want to do in this offseason is forget about Justin Fields. I want to forget about him. People can talk about, well, they only won one more game this year than Justin Fields did in Pittsburgh. Do you know how much of a better system they have in Pittsburgh? I tell you right now, Justin Fields in this system maybe wins 3 games this year, by the way. The thing is, it's like, they won the same amount of games with Justin last year than they did with Caleb this year. I don't care. Caleb put up so much. He was the reason why they were even competing in some of these games. He wasn't blowing games in the fourth quarter. He was consistently playing some of his best football in the fourth quarter, which is something that Justin Fields would play. It's where he would play his worst football. So I want to put away Justin Fields this offseason. And who knows? Depending on what they do with Russell Wilson, Justin Fields might be coming back to Soldier Field next year as a member of the Steelers, which would be kind of fun as a revenge game for Justin. And that's where you're like, you just hope the Bears can just prove them right. But also at the same time, you want a good game there. And it's really frustrating with me with the whole Justin Fields talk, because I think I like Justin Fields as a guy. I really do. I really do. But it's the discourse that makes me upset. It's the same thing with Jayden Daniels. I don't think Jayden Daniels is a bad guy per se, but it's the discourse about it all being a comparison between Caleb and Jayden that just is pissing me off. Caleb almost had 4,000. He had over 3,500 yards this year. Again, yes, you're right. Fields never had 3,000. He had what? He had one 300-yard game as a member of the Bears. Caleb had 4 this year. Like, I do not care. As a passer, he has it. Justin has not found it. He's probably gone to a better system that will elevate his production because he has a system that's going to develop him the correct way. It's like that's one thing I really do want to lead back in 2024. The Fields discourse. It is terrible. It is awful. It's so frustrating. It makes my blood boil. I'm telling you right now. It is unreal. It was so frustrating all year long. And it's like the only thing that Justin Fields really did anything like compared to Caleb Williams was the win column, which you can say that's the most important stat. Isn't the most important stat wins and losses? Sure, you can say that and believe that all you want, but you look at literally every other metric, and Caleb Williams blew Justin Fields out of the water. Oh, by the way, Caleb's game-winning drive that actually counts this time because the Bears finished, because he had like 3 or 4 more of those this year that didn't count because the team ended up losing in some dumb way. Hail Mary, blocked field goal, you name it. Not Jaden. What is it? Why? Caleb Williams has the same amount of comeback drives in the fourth quarter with the Bears as Justin Fields. 1. Justin Fields had 1 in 3 years. Because, yeah, that's it right there. 1 drive where he had the ball down in the final 5 minutes of the game and led the team to a win. They show the stat the stat they show usually before those drives is game tying or winning drives in the fourth quarter or overtime. I think Justin Fields technically has 3. I know one of them was against Houston in 2022 when basically all he do was just kneel it 3 times after Roquan Smith set him up in a tie game for a win. I think the second one was the Niners win in the monsoon, because I think they were technically down. They were down going into the fourth, but I think that's the other one. That's it, because they ended up not giving the lead away. But I can't think of I genuinely can't think of any other one where the Bears ended up winning. So Caleb Williams led the team down the field with under a minute to go, needing a field goal, and he led him into position, and this time it hits. He has done that 2 other times this year. Against Green Bay last time, field goal blocked. Against Detroit, can't use a timeout properly. And you could arguably say he even led a touchdown winning drive with them against Washington that they lost because of the Hail Mary. So it was very clear this year that Caleb Williams has got that dog in him and he's clutch. But the team around him was not. So there's a lot of things that have to change. Should the Bears hire Gerard Mayer just for fun? I mean, where would you hire him? I forget. Is he a defensive guy? I don't know. Whatever it is, maybe it depends on if you find the right spot for him. I mean, I don't know. Caleb has had 5 would-be game-winning drives. Seriously, it was like. Let me take a look at the season now. Hang on, it's down here somewhere. Here it is. Let's see. You have the would-be game-winning drive that he didn't get against Houston, which stinks. Let's see. Indy didn't get a chance. Won the next 3 games. Game-winning drive against Washington that got taken away from him from a Hail Mary because he led them to a win or the lead with under 30 seconds left. Led them to a field goal attempt against Green Bay. Oh my God. Blocked field goal. Led 2 drives to tie a game late against Minnesota, getting an onside kick and everything. He did take a bad sack in that overtime, but that's that's the up and downs of a rookie season. And then of course, driving to try and tie the game against Detroit after having maybe one of the worst first halves I've ever seen. Only would have been topped the next week against San Francisco. And then he gets this one against Green Bay. Against Seattle, throws the interception on 4th down, which, I mean, okay. And then the game-winning drive against Green Bay. Game-winning drive against Green Bay. Isn't that nice to just say? A game-winning drive against Green Bay. From a Bears quarterback. With under a minute to go. Needing a field goal. With just 1 timeout. And I watched a video the other day with someone complaining about the fact, that they shouldn't have had, only 1 timeout, which is right. And that's just another failure and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, they had so many chances to blow this game, but they didn't. They shot themselves in the foot. They only had 1 timeout. They should have had 3. But it's almost more impressive that they were able to get into range with only 1 timeout. I mean, I don't know. There have been some Debbie Downers over the last 24 hours, which I cannot believe there are people that are like that right now on a victory Monday against the Packers. I really don't understand. Even though Thomas Brown has one win under his belt as interim head coach, happy he was against the Panthers. I'm so happy for Thomas Brown. I was kind of like, I don't want... He seems like a fine guy, and I know that he's not going to be the head coach, or most likely not going to be in the organization next year. I'd love for him to just get 1 win as a head coach. Just to be, one of those things where it's like, I won an NFL game as a head coach. As a head coach, I won an NFL game. And it was against our biggest rivals. The team that I was coaching was against their biggest rivals. And it was in spectacular fashion. And then, and also it helps me take the narrative about Matt Eberflus, about him being not the only Bears head coach to not be the Packers. It keeps that going, which is honestly hilarious. I feel like Brown got thrown into an iffy situation. Oh, 100%. He got thrown into a bad situation, and I think they made the wrong choice for an interim head coach as well. Good roster, but I feel like he barely got used to being OC before being thrown into being head coach. Agreed. And you can see that the 3 games where he was the head coach in the booth, the team was pretty good offensively. It wasn't like pulling teeth watching that offense. And then he has to come down to the field being the head coach and the offense takes another like 3 games, 3, 4. No, honestly, this is the first game that they even looked competent under the Browns head coach coaching tenure. So, I mean, I understand why they made the move to pick him because, well, if you were going to think about bringing him in as a head coach, period, yeah. I think that the scheme just used Kmet more. I feel bad for Cole Kmet this year. Cole Kmet got the absolute shaft this year. Little to no attention all year long. It's a real shame. A real shame. And I think that stems all the way back to training camp with Shane Waldron. Whatever it was, Shane Waldron was not using his tight ends. In whatever world he was coaching, it was a minimal tight end offense. And it's not what the Bears need or needed this year. So, regardless of who comes in to be the next offensive coordinator, whether that be Ben Johnson or any other coaching hire, they need to understand the guys in the locker room and scheme and combine their own scheme with the guys on the team. And that's what is the important thing. Because Shane Waldron had a scheme. It didn't work because his scheme doesn't work with this team. And his personnel choices were at times just baffling. So, I mean, there's a couple things that, need to get changed going forward. I don't know. There's so many things that we can talk about that need to change. And frankly, I think that there are certain things that 1 or 2 decisions can have a domino effect of fixing more and more things. Like using Kmet. If we fire the right guy to call plays to be our offensive mind, it will fix the whole Kmet problem. It'll fix, Caleb's sack problems. It could hopefully then turn in fixing the offensive line if you hire the right coach there. Which, the fact that Chris Morgan was able to ride out the rest of the season is embarrassing. He needs to be gone today. And then, there are certain things that, honestly, it could, Caleb could 100% throw for 4,000 yards next year if they get the right head coach. If he's going to throw for 3,500 yards with 2 head coaches, 3 offensive coordinators, or whatever, 2 offensive coordinators, I don't know if it was technically a third, whatever it is, and he still throws for 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns and less than 10 interceptions. Imagine what happens when he gets a head coach that is going to be there not only be there the entire year, but is going to be a good head coach. And then what happens if he gets a good offensive coordinator? This guy's going to be good. It's the best touchdown interception ratio in Bears history. He threw just 1 pick after the bye week. Just 1. It's unreal. So, I mean, there's a lot of positives to take away from Caleb Williams' rookie season, in my opinion. The only damning negatives, the sacks he took, and the record. That's it. Mostly everything else was one of the best Bears best quarterback seasons in Bears history. You can get that sentence out. Good Lord. It's just, that's the way. We need a GM head coach that doesn't give up on QBs after their rookie contract. They have a little time to develop on their contract. We just give up. Yes and no. Now, when I think give up on a quarterback, I'm thinking 2 years, 3 years, right? I think you probably get 3 years most of the times before you got to think about an extension. And the thing is, it's like it's a really hard thing to do. Anyone who gives up on a quarterback through one season, a season and a half, no. 2 seasons, if, they're still struggling, you give them one more year, especially if you draft him with high draft capital, he gets 3 years minimum. Like that's how this has to work. You draft a quarterback in the first round, you give him 3 years minimum. Pretty much. You basically give them until they're at the end of their rookie contract. And if they're making things happen, they're putting up good stats, but maybe the team hasn't been great, maybe you sign them. But it's becoming much more of a problem in the league because the contracts have just gotten more and more and more expensive. Look at Jordan Love. He signed for $55 million a year this offseason for half a season of good play. And he wasn't bad this year, but it's like $55 million a season. By the time the Bears will have to sign Caleb Williams, who knows how much that's going to be. So, there's a lot of things that need to that whole thing is. I'm hoping that he is the answer. George Halas be so disappointed. Oh my God. There's so much wrong with the McCaskey family. It's not even funny. George, actually, I should have totally mentioned this in my reaction video that I recorded yesterday, uploaded it today. I should have totally mentioned this. I was watching the game with members of my family. My grandpa was there. My grandpa's been a big Chicago sports guy for pretty much all of his life. That's pretty much all he does nowadays. He watches sports. He was one of those guys who was just wearing the shirts of "Just one before I die" with the Cubs and everything. And I was super happy they won the World Series. I was more happy for the people who were in their 70s and haven't seen one, right? But regardless, after Malik Willis had the ball slip out of his hands on the 2-point attempt, he said it was the ghost of George Halas slipping that ball out of the hand of Malik Willis and, having to need to give him that little extra push to get over the hump. But he would have, oh God. To think about the organization that started the NFL, because George Halas pretty much is the founder of the NFL. Pretty much. He got together the teams for the inaugural 1920 season. And he was the player coach of the Bears. And to see where his franchise has been pretty much ever since he gave away the reins is embarrassing. Is really sad. So, look, I say this, I said this earlier, I would love to be a Packer fan right now. Dude, we're 11-6, we're going to the playoffs. We've made the playoffs 5 of the last 6 years with our head coach. We've missed the playoffs just 6 times or whatever since 2002. I don't care. This is great. We're in contention pretty much every year. Would I love to win a couple more Super Bowls? Of course. But there's little to complain about, in my opinion. Really, it's when you talk about a team that's been to the playoffs just 5 times since 2002. Making the playoffs is a good season right now. Would I love for making the playoffs be the standard? Of course. But you have to start with just making the playoffs and considering it a good season. Not like a massive success, but a good season and a step in the right direction. So, I mean, that's kind of the way I'm thinking about it. I'm tired of losing. I'm tired of losing the Packers. I'm so happy they broke that streak. There were so many streaks they broke. 10-game losing streak overall, 11-game losing streak to the Packers. The first win in 6 years against the Packers. First win in 9 tries against the Packers in Lambeau. There's so many things that they broke with that win. I don't care about draft repercussions or anything like that. People saying that win right there is going to keep Ryan Poles' job are just kidding themselves. That is not. They would have made the decision to keep Poles or not before that game. And that game should not have made or should not have been the decider on whether or not to keep Poles or not. If they had a strong finish to the season and that was the reason why, then there you go. It was the reason why they kept Eberflus. The defense had a very strong end of the year. They won 5 of their last 8 or whatever, right? They were pretty good to end the year. And that's where it was we got into excitement. I think the idea is we need to have cautious optimism as Bears fans. We do this every year. They're going to be a good team this year. We all have, you either have the people that are super hyped about the team all the time, super optimistic, we got this. And you have the Debbie Downers, the negative Nancys, the doom and gloom, the doomers that think that they're going to go 0-17, 3-14, 2-15 every single season because nothing's going to change, right? The thing is, we as Bears fans need to have cautious optimism. We need to allow ourselves to get excited, but also we need to understand that they have found ways to break our hearts several times before, and put yourself in a position to be like, hey, I don't have a lot of expectation. If they get to the playoffs, woohoo! But, it's like the standard right now has been missing the playoffs. I don't know. So it is, I say we have cautious optimism going into next season if they make the right hires. I think that the attitude that I will have going into the regular season next year is going to depend on the moves they make in the offseason. Hello, Chris. I know you're dumping a lot on me. Let me go through this. Field sucks and he had 3 road wins and 6 starts this year. Hang on. Okay, let me go ahead and extend the window a little bit for you. There you go. Field sucks and had 3 road wins and 6 starts this year. Caleb had 1 road win and 17 starts. City Fields is in the playoffs and Caleb got 5 wins. The only time Caleb can win a game is when the defense gets 2+ turnovers and the special teams get a touchdown. Did they build the statue next to MJ yet? Lol. In the past 25 years, there have been 530 quarterbacks with 100 attempts in a season. Caleb is ranked 520th in completion, throwing over 10 yards of airtime. 35.6 on throws on 10 yards, 5 and 12. Caleb, 27 sacks in the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter game within 7 points. Caleb obtained 13 sacks and 1 touchdown pass. General sacks taker, 512. Added a new center, is ranked 12th best. Added Allen, Odunze Swift. This talent added got 5 wins. Always show for sack record breaking Caleb. Bear offensive line is ranked 12th. Pass blocking, tied with Cincy, blah, blah, blah. College Caleb, top 25 defenses the day they played. 6 touchdowns, 6 INTs, 172 yards per game, 32 fumbles, and 36 career college games. Quit in Oklahoma and then quit on UCSC for a bowl game. Wow, someone doesn't like Caleb Williams. Sounds like someone wants Justin Fields back. Hey, here's a nice fact and a nice stat for you that since you're talking about stats so much. How many game-winning drives does Caleb Williams and Justin Fields have as a Bears quarterback when down in the final 5 minutes? 1. Both have the same. Caleb Williams has more 300-yard passing games than Justin Fields does in his career. Caleb Williams has one of the best rookie seasons in Bears history. He's not better. I'm tired of this. He is not. Justin Fields went 4-2 in a better system than Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams was probably going maybe 6-0 in that system right there. Let's be honest. With the schedule that the Steelers had to start the season, Atlanta, Denver, the LA Chargers, the Colts, the Cowboys, the Raiders, the Jets, the Giants. I mean, if Caleb starts all 8 those games, they maybe win all 8 of them with how good that system is. Fields did stink. But saying that he won 3 road games and that's an indictment on Caleb Williams doesn't make any sense because they're 2 completely different systems with 2 completely different coaching staffs, one of which is miles better than the other. And it's like, I don't know, man. What do you want me to say? I'm not saying I don't want the haul. Caleb Williams, the big thing he needs to work on is taking sacks. But guess what? He didn't take any. He took 1 on the first snap of the game on Sunday and didn't take another sack all game long. There's honestly, it's going to be night and day if they make the right offensive hire and Caleb Williams just pops off and becomes the Bears' first 4,000-yard passer. If you're unhappy, that's your fault. All right? That's the way that I think about it. If you're unhappy with all this, it's your fault. Williams this, Daniels that, Nix that, May there. What about Penix? Sure, he hasn't started too many games, but he's not getting the media attention. That is true. That is true. I do like Michael Penix. He's had a pretty good, solid couple of games to end in his rookie year. He actually played pretty well. I actually don't. And look, you know what? Here's one thing we can all agree. Here, can we start a dialogue instead of comparing everyone? I'm tired of the comparisons. Williams Fields, Williams Daniels, Williams Nix, Williams May, Williams Penix. Shut up. Can we please just say, hey, maybe this quarterback draft class is just going to be really good. And maybe the teams that picked their quarterbacks made the right pick. Maybe it's just going to work out for everyone. And we're going to have a great quarterback class that's going to be hailed as one of the greats, like 2004. Can we just accept that maybe all these quarterbacks are going to be good starters in the NFL? Because, God, does the NFL need that badly? I'm telling you, there's been plenty of first-round quarterbacks that have been put into terrible situations, have been given no help, and stunk. So to see that we have 2 rookie quarterbacks who started the whole year go to the playoffs, I'm loving that. It sucks that it's not my team, but I'm happy because the 2 teams that did get in have their own playoff droughts and have their own playoff futility to deal with. And I'm happy for the Broncos and the Commanders. I'm getting real tired of comparisons. It is constant comparisons over and over and over. Can we just be happy that Caleb Williams led down the game-winning drive and beat the Packers? Something that Justin Fields could never do. Oh my gosh. Stop it with the Fields talk. Please. Leave that in 2024. My dad made a good point. If you're a player in the draft and get picked early in the draft, like the first 10 picks, be happy you got picked early, but most of the time you're going into a bad team. That's exactly what happened. Look what Bryce Young has done in the last 5 weeks of the year. It took him a while. Patience, people. Bryce Young was god-awful his rookie year. But you know who else was god-awful in their rookie season? Peyton Manning. He still has the rookie interception record. Troy Aikman went 0-11 in his rookie season. Jared Goff went 0-7 in his rookie season. So don't give me the we made the wrong pick nonsense. if they stink again next year and Caleb Williams regresses and, fails to eclipse 3,000 yards and doesn't, and throws 12 picks and the team goes 5-12 again, then yeah, maybe we did make the wrong pick. But I'm not going to go out and say that after he did something that Fields never did. Throw for 3,000 yards. Did something that Fields never did. Beat the Packers. Something that not only that Fields never did, but Trubisky never did. Beat the Packers in Lambeau. The Bears' time will come if they make the right moves in the offseason. That's the bottom line. With the guys on this team, they can be contenders for years if they make the right moves in the coaching staff and replace the few position groups they need to upgrade at. It's like there are a lot of people saying that they're 3 years away from contention. Again, if they make the right moves, they could compete next year. And I genuinely think that. They could compete next year if they make the right moves. Now, will they make the right moves? I don't have a lot of faith. But, it's like you got to have some sort of optimism after a win like that to end the season. The thing is, we can complain about stat watching and box score watching all we want, but the improvement's going to come. The offensive line was terrible this year. I don't care about some of these pass blocking stats. Caleb did hold on to the ball a lot this year. He did, and took some bad sacks this year. But you know what? A lot of other rookie quarterbacks do that. I don't get it. Why is it all of a sudden different for Caleb Williams when other rookie quarterbacks have struggles in their rookie year, but, it's not that big of a deal? I don't know. He did take bad sacks. Yes, he's got to work on that. And he got better throughout the rest of the year. This last game, he did a good job getting out of sacks and making sure and kind of accepting and living to fight for another play instead of just taking a sack and throwing the ball away. He did that. The only sack he took was because he fumbled the first snap of the game and picked it up and just ate the sack. That's it. So, I don't know. Before the draft, I was not a fan of Williams from all of the hype, but going into the season, I gave him a chance. He proved me so wrong. Look, at the end of last season, I was on the Fields train because he had a good end of the year, but at the same time, I was also trying to cherry pick things about Williams' character. He has shown me throughout, pretty much, it happened when they drafted him. His energy, the videos that came out with him and Rome, the ensuing coverage the next couple days, I fell in love with his character. He seems like an energetic, fun guy who just wants to go out and ball out and win. He's a competitor, and he showed it all year long. Before the draft, I was trying to pick holes in and almost convince myself I didn't want him. All the talk about his dad wanting an ownership, his dad telling him he should have an ownership stake in the team, and all this other diva-like attitude stuff. Painting the nails. Anyone who complains about painting the nails, grow up. It's 2025 now. Grow up. What is him painting your nails threaten your masculinity? Grow a pair. Grow a real pair. And it's not that big of a deal. Shut up. There was some character issues that people were... I wasn't on the whole finger painting train, whatever. That never... I didn't care about that. Guys have been painting their nails for years. All of a sudden a football player doesn't. Apparently it's not manly. Just... Stop it. I didn't know painting nails prevented you from playing ball. I didn't know either. Apparently it prevented you from playing, knowing how to play ball. Apparently. Look, It was a very, very, very good year to have the number 1 overall pick. It was a very good draft. A lot of really, really good players came out of the draft this year and had good rookie seasons. And it's like, I think this draft is going to go down in history as a really, really good one. Just from the rookie season so far. You can talk about Williams, Daniels, May, Nix. Let's get Urlachers. Oh my God. Even I'll do you one better. Let's go take the guys at CHGO. Let's go get Lance Briggs, Alex Brown. We'll go get Olin Kreutz as well. David Kaplan. All the members of the Chicago media go coach the team. We'll do that. Let's do that. Wanstedt. That's another one. There's another one. Get Dave Wanstedt. Hester as the offense coordinator. Of course, yeah, 100%. No. Hester is the special teams coordinator. Of course, he'd be the special teams guy. But seriously, you look at like some of the rookie seasons we're seeing. Williams, Daniels, Nix, Penix having a good end of the year. May proving he can be a solid starter. Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze, even though despite being pretty much the third receiver on the team, still had a good season. Brock Bowers, breaking tight end records on a frankly terrible Raiders team. Lad McConkey having a good season. Bucky Irving for the Buccaneers. Oh gosh, hang on. There's definitely people I'm missing. Another rookie I don't hear about is Joe Alt. Yeah, see, the thing is, offensive line picks aren't the sexy picks. They don't get like the guys who are going to put up a bunch of numbers on the stat sheet. But, dude, if you get a good O-lineman, dude, Joe Alt's going to play 15 years of Pro Bowl-worthy football. I'm telling you right now. That guy's going to be a beast. It's why I supported the Darnell Wright pick. Darnell Wright was the only guy on the offensive line who was consistent all year long. He had a couple moments where he struggled, but it's amplified because the rest of the line's bad. So I will stand, like some people are saying, well, we didn't get Jalen Carter, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't care. Darnell Wright is the only guy on that offensive line who's even playing half decent. Joe Alt's had a good rookie season. Let's see. Oh, I did not save this post. Crap. Oh, shoot. I forget what count this was. Just starts this up. There we go. Perfect. Look at that. Just ready to put that in. Yeah, Malik Neighbors. Quinion Mitchell's having a good rookie season for the Eagles. Offensive version of Aaron Donald. Jalen McMillan, another good rookie season. Really had a good one to end the year. Marvin Harrison Jr., I mentioned him. Ricky Pearsall, when he came back in a couple of the games, he's been a piece. Jared Verse has been quietly having a good season for the Rams. Brian Thomas. Why wasn't he in the Pro Bowl this year? Brian Thomas was phenomenal this season. Totally deserved to go to the Pro Bowl this year. Bo Nix, of course. There's a couple really, really good guys out there that are playing good football. I think this is going to be one of those draft classes that's going to be looked on as like a real good one. So I'm very happy at this. I mean, it feels like it's really important because we've had a couple drafts where we haven't gotten like great talent across the board. So I think that this, if it becomes a good class, yeah. Bears fan 2, thank goodness finally went over the Packers. Of course, anyone who's upset about this, get out my chat. Go back to your man cave and let the Bears ruin your day every day if they're not winning 30 points or 17-0. All right? Have fun. Get out of my chat, please. Seriously. Marked on my calendar, keeping that page forever. Yep, I've already liked the highlights of the game. I've already saved it in I have a playlist of like recaps of sport games that I attended to that my team won, or like memorable moments, stuff that I attended, right? Like, yeah, great stuff. Like, I've already saved that. Like, this is going into some of the core memories. Oh, with the way the Packers played with, and it's like people were talking about like, oh, well, you beat our backups. Like, dude, when Love got injured and Jacobs was pulled, the Bears were up like 14-3, 14-10, whatever. They were winning. It wasn't like the Packers were stomping the Bears like 14-zip, and then it took them pulling people for us to get back. No, the Bears were already winning. I think the Eagles not only win but fly with. If the Packers don't get their act together, it is over. And it very well could be. The Packers have not beaten one of the top tier teams in the NFC. And they're going to go have to play one on the road. They were lucky they got the Eagles on a neutral site. And I remember that game. I remember watching that game. That Packers team had so many chances to put that game away early and could not do it. Could not. And they kept the Eagles in it, and they pull away. And then they survive. And then, they're going to meet again in Philly. So it's an interesting one, man. I'm telling you. This thing's going to be fun going to the off season. So I'm just happy. I don't care about losing 2 positions. I don't care if people try to discredit this win. I don't care if people are just going to compare to other guys who aren't on our team. I do not care. The Bears won against the Packers. I am happy. Maybe the Packers will commit a double doink against the Eagles. They can't bully us about it anymore. God, wouldn't that be poetic to have something like that happen after their kicker's been super reliable this year in Brandon McManus? Wouldn't that be poetic? Oh boy, I was almost going to fall over. Yeah, I mean, wow. Anyways, if you have any final thoughts or comments or questions, go ahead and leave them. I've been going for almost 2 hours now. So we'll go ahead and get this thing wrapped up. And I would love to do some more postseason content, talk about the Bears. Maybe, depending on my freedom, in a sense, to maybe watch a couple playoff games, or maybe, just get together and talk about the Bears a little bit. I don't know. I gotta maybe we do this. I don't know. I got to think about what I want to do here in 2025. I really do want to do some Bears postseason content. This feels like a season where I really want to do some postseason stuff. It doesn't feel like a season that I really want to. It's like, thank God the season's over. I want to not think about this team anymore, right? So, we'll see what happens. Hopefully the Bears will make the playoffs. That is just a hope. That's a hope. With me hoping that was going to be the case this year, again, all depends on the moves they make in the offseason. If they make the right hire a head coach, they get a good offensive player or two, and they build the depth in the trenches. They maybe get a good free agent signing or two, right? Like, I'm hoping that this. Oh yeah, Ben Johnson's my home run hire. I would not be upset at all with Mike Vrabel, at all. I think the more that people have talked about him, the more I'm warming up to him as a potential head coaching option. But Ben Johnson is my number one ride or die option. Excited to see what the Bills do. Honestly, if there's one team I am rooting for hard in the playoffs this year, it's the Buffalo Bills. Not just for Josh Allen and his own legacy, but for that town, that city, diehard fan base, one of the best fan bases in the league, great home stadium, great atmosphere, and of course, wide right 2.0, 4 Super Bowl losses in a row in the 90s. They deserve a title. And they deserve to go through and beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs too to do it. So if there's one team I'm rooting for, it's the Bills. Plus, good old friend Mitch Trubisky gets a Super Bowl ring. I know people don't like him in Chicago or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. I love Mitch. He was a great guy. He's got a little kid now. I still follow him. I still follow him on social, on Instagram. Seems like he's having a great time. I'm just happy for him that he's having a good time. So whatever, right? Yeah, 2006 is great. I was 4 years old. So, I remember I was I was told to go to sleep before the Bears game started that day. For the Super Bowl. Or, no, that wouldn't have been the case. I probably was told to go play in the basement or whatever when I was, because again, another thing about me, I don't live in Chicago anymore. I used to. That's where I grew up for a little bit. I live out in the Pacific. I live out in California, so. But, it's like, I was probably told to just go to the basement or something that day. Because I don't remember anything from it. So, I don't know. There's a lot of pain and suffering that since that 2006 season that I missed out on that I'm really happy I did. Mainly that 2010 NFC Championship loss. Very happy I missed that. Though I did not miss the 4th and 8. Every time the Bears and Packers meet in the season finale now, it's going to be something they talk about. Every time they come up, it always gets talked about, So, yeah, I don't know. My dad is upset we lost that Super Bowl, but he always says that Colts deserved it. Oh, yeah. That Bears team did not deserve to win the Super Bowl with that team. That defense did. But you think about it like, if it was against the Patriots, then you're upset. But with it being Peyton Manning and Tony Dungy and their legacy in Indianapolis, it doesn't sting as much from a perspective from my team losing the Super Bowl. Especially not going in with a lot of hopes. But anyways, I'm going to try to do some more content here on the postseason. Do some topical stuff on the Bears. And, I'm actually thinking about trying to get together, do a live stream for the next Hawks games on Wednesday against the Avalanche. We'll do a play-by-play and reaction for that. At least that's what I'm thinking about doing. If not, then I think the next game against the Red Wings. But one of those two games I'll do. And have a good time. Come hang out. Watch a Hawks game, despite them being pretty bad. Just like the Bears. But, you go in, you just want to go ahead and have fun. I was hoping the Bears would draft me. Marvin Harrison Jr. being he saw his dad win the Super Bowl against the Bears. Imagine getting drafted by him. That would have been kind of funny. But you knew they were taking the quarterback when they got rid of Justin Fields. And Marvin Harrison Jr. was going to be off the board by the time they were going to get the 9th pick. So, yeah, it would have been nice to have him. He had a really nice season. But it's good that the Cardinals have a 1-2 punch, in a sense, with Murray and Harrison. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think this is going to be an interesting offseason. It's a crucial offseason. It's a very important offseason. But my advice, stay cautiously optimistic out there, Bears fans. It's going to be an interesting run. And who knows what happens. You hope it ends with the Bears making the right choices and playing meaningful football in December next year. Anyways, at some point I've got to go ahead and call it. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you all for hoping, we could beat the Packers. We haven't done that since 2007. That would be awesome. Again, I'll reiterate this. I've only seen 3 wins against the Packers since becoming a fan in the middle of the 2013 season. I missed their win in 2013. So I saw them win on Thanksgiving and ruin Brett Favre's retirement night. I saw them clinch the division in 2018. And I saw them win yesterday. That is it in 11 years of Bears fandom. So, God, a sweep would be awesome. Honestly, if they just win a game 2 years in a row, I'd be happy. So, you know, there's a lot with it, right? But I'm taking this win and I'm running with it. Anyways, I got to get out of here. I've been here for 2 hours. At some point, I got to call it. And thank you for everyone who ended up hopping in the chat. Honestly, I kind of had dumped all my thoughts out here. I was thinking about possibly ending it. So Brian, Braden, Thomas, JD Tractor Boy, Chris, and Dylan, thank you for keeping the conversation going. And we'll chat another time for sure. I love seeing Hester's one-day contracts so you can retire a Bear. I always love when teams do that. That's always super nice and fun to see. Anyways, Bear down. We get the win over the Packers. First time I get to say that in the 5-year history of this channel. And yeah. Maybe you can be the Bears' next head coach. Maybe, man. Maybe. Take a miracle. I'd have to start coaching at a local high school or something. But who knows? Maybe I'll be a mentor. You know, whisper in the ears of some of the players, be like, "Hey, you should totally do this." You know, maybe that's the best I can do, probably. Apply. Didn't get an interview. Well, I mean, you tried. Might as well throw your name in the hat. Doesn't hurt to throw in an application. Anyways, guys, thanks for keeping the conversation going. Thanks for conversing and talking Bears with me this afternoon. Hope y'all have a great day. Bear down. We beat the Packers. No pack, no. No pack, no. Go lose in Philly. Have fun. I don't care. We don't play next week. I don't care. It's one of my favorite occasions in January. Packers Elimination Day. And we get to see it on Sunday, 4:30 Eastern in Philadelphia, most likely. I sure hope that that's the case. But, you know, they're not coming into that game on a hot streak like they were last year. But anyways, thanks for hanging out, chatting it up. And, yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Bear down, everyone.